You accepted $52,000. It was your first real job. The offer came after 7 weeks of looking, and the number felt enormous compared to the nothing you were making before. You did not negotiate. You were afraid the offer would evaporate if you asked for more. You said yes within the hour. 10 years later, you are still paying for that hour, not metaphorically. In a specific, calculable number of dollars that left your life and never came back, because of a decision you made in under 60 minutes when you were 22 and relieved. Here is how a single starting number follows you for a decade, and here is the part that makes it almost impossible to undo. Your starting salary is not a starting point. It is a base that every future number is calculated from. When you accepted $52,000, you did not just set your pay for year one. You set the foundation that every raise, every bonus, and every future offer would be measured against for years. Here is the mechanism in plain numbers. Annual raises are calculated as a percentage of your current salary, not as a flat amount tied to your value. The average annual raise in the United States runs between 3 and 4%. At $52,000, a 3% raise is $1,560. If you had started at $58,000 instead, the same 3% raise for the same work would have been $1,740. Same performance, same review, same words from your manager. $180 difference in a single year, generated entirely by a starting number you set a year earlier. That gap does not stay at $180. It compounds. Each year's raise is calculated on the prior year's inflated or deflated base, so the difference between the two starting points widens every single year without anyone deciding that it should. By year 5, the person who started at $58,000 is not $6,000 ahead. They are closer to $8,000 ahead because 5 years of percentage raises have multiplied the original gap. You did not underperform your way into this gap. You did not get worse reviews. The person ahead of you did not work harder. They simply entered the system at a higher number, and the system did the rest automatically, compounding a one-time difference into a permanent and growing one. The starting salary was never just the starting salary. It was the multiplier applied to everything that came after it. The compounding inside one company is only half of it. The more powerful mechanism is what happens when you leave. When you apply for your next job, one of the first questions asked directly or extracted from a background check or a compensation history is what you currently earn. Your next offer is built on your current salary, not on the value of the new role. This is called salary history anchoring, and it is the reason a low starting number does not stay inside the company where you accepted it. It travels with you. A recruiter making an offer typically targets a raise of 10 to 20% over your current pay. If you are earning $55,000 after a few years on a $52,000 base, your strong offer is $63,000 to $66,000. If you had been earning $62,000 at the same point, the identical role at the identical company would have offered you $71,000 to $74,000. The new employer is not measuring what you are worth to them. They are measuring what it will take to move you from where you currently are. Several states have banned employers from asking salary history for exactly this reason. The bans help, but less than they appear to. Researchers who studied the states that imposed them found that pay for job changers rose by only about 5% on average, because employers simply ask for your salary expectations instead, and your expectations are anchored to your current pay. You cannot unknow what you currently make. You name a number a few thousand above it, because asking for a 40% jump feels unreasonable even when the role is worth it. The anchor moved from a question on a form into your own head, where it does the same work more quietly and for free. So the $52,000 decision does not end when you leave the first job. It sets the floor for the second offer, which sets the floor for the third. Each move forward carries the original number inside it, marked up by a percentage, never reset to what the new work is actually worth. The structure underneath all of this is that the raise you were too afraid to ask for was almost always cheaper for the employer to grant than you believed, and more valuable to you than you could see. Return to the hour you accepted the offer. You were afraid that asking for $58,000 instead of $52,000 would cost you the job. Run the number from the other side of the table. The company had already spent weeks recruiting, screening, and interviewing for the role. The cost of restarting that process, of leaving the seat empty for another 2 months, ran into the tens of thousands of dollars in lost productivity and recruiter time. Against that, a $6,000 increase to your starting offer was small. Companies almost never pull an offer over a reasonable counter because the counter is cheaper than the alternative. They expected you to negotiate. Many had already built room into the offer for exactly that. The number they showed you first was rarely the maximum they were authorized to pay. Now, run the number from your side. That $6,000 was not a one-time gain. It was a permanent increase to the base that every future percentage would multiply. Over 10 years, accounting for compounding raises alone, a $6,000 higher starting salary is worth not $60,000, but closer to $80,000, once you account for the larger raises calculated on the larger base. Over a full career, the figure crosses well into the 6 figures. The 11 minutes of discomfort you avoided, the conversation where you would have said you were hoping for something closer to 58, had a price. It was not the awkwardness. The awkwardness was free. The price was the $80,000 that conversation would have set in motion, which you declined without knowing you were declining anything at all. Here is what none of that prepared you for. The people who out-earn you over a decade are frequently not better at their jobs than you. They are better at the 11 minutes. The single most reliable predictor of lifetime earnings is not talent, not hours worked, and not even the field you choose. It is the willingness to negotiate at the points of entry and to switch jobs rather than wait for internal raises. This produces an outcome that feels backwards. The loyal employee, the one who stays, works hard and waits patiently for the company to recognize them with annual raises, is mathematically the one falling behind. Their 3% annual raises cannot keep pace with the 10 to 20% jumps available to the person who changes jobs every 2 to 3 years and negotiates each move. The system does not reward the behavior it praises. It rewards the behavior it quietly tolerates. The person who looks least loyal on paper is compounding their income at the rate the patient person was told they would eventually reach and never does. The starting salary follows you for 10 years not because the number is permanent, but because the behavior that set it usually is. The same instinct that made you accept $52,000 without asking is the instinct that makes you accept the 3% raise without leaving. The number was never the problem. The hour was. The starting salary is not a number you were given. It is a number you accepted, and the difference between those two things is the entire decade. 3 things you can do, regardless of where you are in this right now. Before your next offer, decide your counter number in advance and say it out loud to one person, so you arrive at the conversation already committed to it. The anchor only wins against someone who shows up without one of their own. Calculate what a single $5,000 increase to your current salary is worth over the next 10 years at a 4% annual raise. The number is over $70,000. Keep that figure in front of you the next time 11 minutes of discomfort stands between you and it. If you have been at the same employer for more than 3 years on standard raises, run one external interview, not to leave, but to see your real market number. Most people have never seen it. The gap between that number and your current pay is the cost of the hour you are still inside. You accepted $52,000 in under 60 minutes when you were 22 and relieved. Somewhere a 22-year-old is about to do the same thing in the same hour for the same reason. The offer is on the screen. The clock is already running.